which is in the name of Deputy Tommy Broughan, requires a discussion on the problem of joyriding and antisocial behaviour in Dublin Bay North. Deputy Broughan.
At the outset, Minister, and Cancorla, I'd like to wish a speedy recovery to a member of An Garda Síochána who was injured in the line of duty last week. When such an incident happens, of course, it's a reminder of the grave dangers of the job of protecting and serving our communities, and that our respect and gratitude must be extended to our Garda public servants, those men and women who put their lives on the line for us. But just a few weeks ago, or a few weeks rather, after the school holidays began last summer, Minister, and over following weeks, I received shocking reports from delegations of my constituents about outrageous and antisocial and criminal behaviour involving joyriding and related mayhem being inflicted on residents night after night, and often all throughout the night. I was informed that up to 5 and 6 vehicles were dangerously driven around a part of one estate in Dublin Bay North and then set on fire in nightly episodes, often lasting up to 6 a.m. Community leaders complained of cars being burned directly outside family homes and then being used as blockades of those homes, as the lives of local children and families are put in jeopardy on a daily and nightly basis. This hugely distressing mayhem, Cancorla, was captured on photos and videos sent to me by constituents. I immediately reported the re-emergence of this appalling behaviour to our senior Garda officers and to the Deputy City Manager for Housing and Estate Management. Unfortunately, the initial response of An Garda Síochána and Dublin City Council in midsummer was very slow, and many residents felt let down by the Gardaí and local authority officials. Following urgent requests from community leaders and local community safety forums and our Dublin North Central Joint Policing Committee, a policing plan was at last put into action, which resulted in a reduction in this crime by early autumn. But this terrible problem persists, Minister, and I've contacted our local Gardaí and Dublin City Council management on the issue repeatedly over recent months. Because of grave concerns over further upsurge in the joyriding terror in the period around Halloween, of course, I raised the matter with former Taoiseach Francis Fitzgerald, Deputy Francis Fitzgerald, on leaders' questions on October 26 last. Even in recent weeks, I've received ongoing reports of cars being recklessly driven and burnt out in broad daylight. On one recent Saturday afternoon, for example, Minister, a car was being disgracefully joyrided from 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and residents allege that repeated and multiple calls to An Garda Síochána did not elicit a response till around 9 p.m. that night. While tyres are wrecked and car wheels driven on the rim, it's reported that alleged ringleaders were witnessed calmly changing a tyre to continue the mayhem for further hours. I visited the district worst affected many times and can verify that some streets and amenity green spaces have been left in a disgusting state, with debris and blackened fire damage still clearly visible, even after burnt-out cars have been removed. The appalling antisocial and criminal behaviour referred to, of course, Minister, is just one serious aspect of a wider rise in antisocial behaviour across other districts of DBN, of Dublin Bay North, and I believe other constituencies also. My office receives regular complaints of intimidation of citizens and families, widespread vandalism of public facilities and damage to apartment blocks and housing estates. So what steps are you taking, Minister, to bring this behaviour to an end and reassure householders and estates that mindless antisocial and criminal behaviours will not be tolerated and won't be tolerated by this House or by this Government? What action has been taken to apprehend alleged ringleaders of this joyriding and other criminal behaviour, to identify and caution them, to link them with the JLOs and the Garda Diversion programme, which has been so successful, Cancorla, and if necessary to prosecute those most responsible? As I asked former Minister Fitzgerald in October, what action has been taken to identify and prosecute adults selling or transferring vehicles to youngsters? And you might remember, Minister, I brought the original legislation on that matter into Dáil Éireann myself, because most of these cars are not stolen vehicles. Minister, when will the long-promised new community policing teams under the Garda national model of community policing be introduced into the Garda DBN or North? Community policing and general Garda resources, of course, were devastated by the long years of austerity foisted on us by the Fianna Fáil Fine Gael blanket bank guarantees. In DBN North, for example, which covers Dublin Bay North and most of Dublin Fine Gael, that's 300,000 people, there were just 202 and 160 Gardaí, respectively, for the Ora and J Garda districts repeatedly last year, and our community Garda were cut down to only 40 in number. So, Minister, we need urgent action to stop this resurgence of a horrible criminal behaviour and to bring peace and security to my constituents.
Thanks, Deputy.
Thanks,
Flanagan.
I want to thank Deputy Broughan, Cancorla, for raising this important public safety issue. Indeed, I want to join with him and other members of the House in extending my good wishes for a speedy recovery to the Garda injured in the course of duty last week in Ballymun. The Deputy Broughan will recall that I responded to his oral parliamentary question on this self-same issue on the 5th of December last. I note that in this instance, The Deputy is focusing on the impact of dangerous driving and antisocial behaviour in his own constituency of Dublin Bay North. Indeed, I share Deputy Broughan's concern in relation to joyriding and antisocial behaviour. We all want to feel safe in our communities, and we all should feel safe in our communities. We want our families, our friends, our neighbours to feel safe. Our community is indeed an extension of our home. In that regard, joyriding and antisocial behaviour fly in the face of what we expect when we are at home in our community. The result of such behaviour can be tragic. The participants in such dangerous antisocial activities can themselves become injured, sometimes seriously and sometimes fatally. They can also inflict injury on law-abiding citizens and members of community. Innocent passers-by, including other road users and pedestrians, can unfortunately meet a similar fate. Families, friends and neighbours, communities are left to pick up the pieces afterwards. And I want to acknowledge the work of Deputy Broughan as an active public representative in his district. And I would ask him to appreciate that I don't have any direct role in the prevention of antisocial behaviour or indeed the enforcement of road traffic legislation, which are, of course, operational issues for An Garda Síochána and the Garda Commissioner in particular. I am informed, however, that An Garda Síochána conducts operations on an ongoing basis to target antisocial activities of young drivers. In order to combat this behaviour, intelligence is gathered at local level and areas are targeted as appropriate. Garda Síochána also works closely with local authorities with a view towards reducing such incidents and opportunities for joyriding, antisocial behaviour and indeed wider instances of public disorder. As a result of the dangerous and antisocial driving behaviour experienced in a number of areas within the Deputy's constituency, Garda Síochána has introduced a robust policy of public order patrols at weekends. This has been particularly evident in recent weeks, with a view towards ensuring a visible Garda presence in the communities concerned, ensuring the safety of Garda members attending to calls, identifying and targeting offenders, preventing antisocial behaviour. Ongoing liaison has been maintained with Dublin City Council, and local Garda management are continuously engaging directly with the communities affected and with local public representatives. As a result of this collaborative approach, Garda Síochána has reported a clear improvement in the levels of antisocial behaviour in recent weeks in the communities concerned. I commend this approach. I commend all involved. In particular, Dublin City Council have made improvements to the railings around Darndale Park, and this has contributed to a reduction of driving in the park. A number of youths involved in antisocial behaviour in the area have been identified. Plans have been put in place to bring them within the case management programme, which is an effective tool to prevent future behaviour of a criminal nature. A specific policing operation was put in place in one of the areas concerned in late October. It involves a range of policing activities with over 25 members of An Garda Síochána drawn from across the district and public order units. Intensive patrolling and checkpoints were conducted. I understand there has been an obvious improvement in the area recently, but I would be grateful if Deputy Broughan would keep me informed of developments in this area. Can I say the programme for government underlines the need for close engagement between An Garda Síochána and local communities as part of the strong community policing ethos which has long been central to policing across the jurisdiction. This active engagement here has proved fruitful. Now it's vital that this ongoing engagement continues.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Broughan.
Minister, in the reply you gave me, I think, a few months ago, you stated that you're in ongoing contact with the Garda Commissioner and that, and I quote, you were committed to ensuring that An Garda Síochána has the necessary resources required to deal with all types of criminality in our communities, end quote. Yet, Minister, in a joint policing committee for the North Central region during the late summer, local superintendents reported that with the move towards armed specialist units, local units have suffered and local units have been depleted. So we come back again, I think, to the necessary resources being available, Minister, in community policing as well. Minister, will you come out to the DMR North Garda District and visit the affected areas yourself and meet directly with some of the residents and excellent community development activists who work diligently on the ground to promote more peaceful, safer and respectful communities? Many of those leaders have given years of service and volunteer hours and have felt, unfortunately, let down by government, Gardaí and local authorities on this current wave of antisocial criminal behaviour. Some residents and community actives have reported to me that when they contact local Gardaí, they were often being told that the Gardaí they were often being told by the stations that on Garda Síochána don't have the resources to send up a car, or one was not available, or in one case, one constituent alleged that he was told to get onto a local TD. But Minister, when your street is being terrorised on a nightly basis, it's simply not good enough to hear such a response. And people are afraid of speaking out, Minister, as well, because we know that when they do, they're often targeted, intimidated and harassed. The area most affected, of course, is supposed to have a Dublin City Council system of camera surveillance, Minister, in the estate, which, with unfortunately regular disruptions, was supposed to act as a deterrent to this type of crime, the crime I've described. But why aren't cameras presumably monitored from Dublin City Council HQ in Woodquay, or the local civic offices Northside and Bunratty Road, to provide vital information to Garda Síochána? And citizens also ask, is there not also a huge role for plainclothes surveillance and unmarked cars in invigilating and ending this type of crime? So in conclusion, Minister, the citizens I represent, they want an urgent and total end to any re-emergence of joyriding crime and all the associated mayhem and antisocial behaviour which accompanies it, and they want peace and security in our district. Thanks,
Minister, to conclude on this particular matter.
Well, can I very much agree with Deputy Broughan that local policing measures to address the type of issues referred to by him will undoubtedly benefit from the increased level of resources now coming on stream through the Garda recruitment programme. The Government has committed to increase Garda numbers to 15,000 so that the Garda Commissioner has the capacity to address the needs of communities throughout the country and into the future. And this, of course, includes the Greater Dublin metropolitan area. We can see specific response that has been put in place by Garda Síochána to tackle antisocial behaviour in the area in question. I understand, as a result of this, Halloween was one of the quietest in recent years. The Deputy will be aware that Garda Síochána signalled its commitment to the overall strength of the roads policing units by 10% prior to the end of this year. The Garda Commissioner recently announced that a further 10% increase is planned during the course of 2018. It's proposed to continue to increase the overall strength of roads policing unit each subsequent year until full operational strength is restored, and along with a greater level of recruits in terms of numbers, wish also to advert to the increased funding in the Garda fleet involving unmarked cars and marked cars, many of which are evident in the Deputy's area. I understand the joint policing committees are working well. I'm always very anxious to hear from local stakeholders, to hear from the meetings, indeed, as to how best we can maximise the work of local stakeholders, local public representatives working with Garda Síochána in communities. I have to say that road safety is a shared responsibility for all road users, not just Garda Síochána and the RSA, other state bodies. I would urge anyone affected by or with information about these types of antisocial behaviour to contact the local Garda station. The Garda confidential line is 1-800-666-111, which is a monitored free phone line that allows members of the public to contact Garda Síochána with information of a confidential nature. Also, Crime Stoppers, 1800 25 0025. I have to say that as far as Garda resources are concerned, we're on target for 13,500 by the end of this year, a total of 21,000 by 2021. I'm really keen to accelerate the process of civilinisation in order to allow the Gardaí out on the streets to do the work that they were trained to do.
Thank you.
And also mention was made of CCTV, and I have grant aid available to local community groups. I'd be happy to speak to the Deputy on these issues.
Thank you, Minister. The fourth